I am no different. Matter of fact, my flaws is probably 20 times worse than other people.
Those words hit differently when you know the full story. Karl Malone is undoubtedly one of the greatest basketball players of all time, a two-time MVP and Hall of Famer, but even he couldn't escape the personal demons that ultimately destroyed everything he built. This is the story of how a legend became one of sport's most controversial figures, the rise of the mailman. In the annals of professional sports, few stories are as devastating as Karl Malone's transformation from beloved icon to vilified figure. Born on July 24, 1963 in Summerfield, Louisiana, Karl Anthony Malone entered a world that seemed designed to break him. Summerfield was a small unincorporated community in Claiborne Parish, Louisiana, with fewer than 200 residents in the 1960s. This was a place where dreams came to die, where the cycle of poverty seemed unbreakable, and where young black men had few options beyond manual labor and broken promises. Karl's childhood was marked by tragedy from the very beginning. His father, Shedrick Hay, abandoned the family when Karl was young, leaving behind a wound that would never fully heal.
Malone grew up in Summerfield, Louisiana. When he was a young boy, his father died from suicide, and his mother had to raise him and his other siblings on her own.
This devastating loss would shape Karl's worldview in ways both inspiring and destructive. The family's struggle was compounded by tragedy when Karl's father died by suicide when Karl was just 14 years old, a fact Malone concealed until a 1994 Sports Illustrated interview. The shame and pain of this loss would follow him throughout his life, creating both a fierce determination to succeed and a deep-seated need to prove his worth. In the absence of his father, Karl's mother Shirley became everything to him. Mother, father, and hero rolled into one. She was a woman of extraordinary strength, working multiple back-breaking jobs to keep her family afloat. Shirley Malone worked multiple jobs, picking cotton, cleaning houses, and laboring at a sawmill to support her large family. But more than just providing for her children, she gave Karl something invaluable, unwavering belief in his potential.
My mom is the only person in my life that every dream I had as a little boy, not my siblings, not my friends, not my teachers, anything that other people would laugh and think outlandish, she would always say, I know you will.
This belief would become the foundation of Karl's success, but it would also contribute to his downfall, creating in him a sense that he was special, that the rules that applied to others didn't apply to him. His mother's love was pure and unconditional, but it may have inadvertently planted the seeds of the entitlement that would later destroy his reputation. Karl's early dreams weren't of basketball stardom. He was a child with grand aspirations that stretched far beyond the cotton fields of Louisiana.
People don't realize this. I didn't want to be an athlete. I was a little run of the family, and I got bullied when I was a little boy. As I got to the 9th grade, the only branch of the military who flew the Harrier jets was the Marines. And that was the jet that hovered, went out, came back, landed, they covered it up. And I wanted to fly a Harrier jet.
It was only when basketball captured his imagination that Karl found his true calling. The transformation was remarkable, from a bullied child dreaming of fighter jets to a towering young man with limitless athletic potential. When he finally embraced basketball, he did so with the same intensity his mother had taught him.
And then I started playing basketball. And I said, Mom, I want to be one of the best. But if I'm not the best, no one would ever outwork me.
The work ethic that would define Karl Malone's career was instilled in him by his grandfather, whose words became his life philosophy.
My grandfather always told me, don't let any man outwork you. And if you got two men with the same mentality, it's going to make for a great show.
This philosophy would carry him through high school at Summerfield High, where he dominated like no player before him. By his sophomore year, he was a 6'9" power forward with rare agility, leading the Summerfield Rebels to 3 consecutive Louisiana Class C state championships. His senior year was legendary, averaging over 30 points and 20 rebounds per game, drawing comparisons to Louisiana legend Willis Reed. But Karl's path to greatness was nearly derailed by academic struggles that reflected the systematic inequalities of his upbringing. He failed to meet NCAA eligibility requirements initially due to low grades, a reflection of underfunded schools and his family's focus on survival over education. Only through the intervention of coaches and community members who recognized his potential was he able to graduate and secure a scholarship to Louisiana Tech University. At Louisiana Tech, Karl faced his first real test of character, and the results were mixed. He was ruled academically ineligible for his freshman season under NCAA Proposition 48, forcing him to sit out. This setback could have broken him, but instead, it forged his determination. When he finally took the court as a sophomore, he was unstoppable. Over 3 seasons, Malone averaged 16.8 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 1.4 steals per game, earning Southland Conference Player of the Year honors in 1983 and 1985. His combination of power and athleticism drew NBA scouts from across the country, but it was also during this period that the first dark shadows began to emerge in his character, shadows that would eventually consume his legacy entirely. When the 1985 NBA draft arrived, Karl Malone was selected 13th overall by the Utah Jazz. 12 teams had passed on him, a slight that would fuel his competitive fire for years to come. The Utah Jazz saw Malone as their cornerstone, and his work ethic aligned perfectly with Utah's blue-collar ethos. His rookie season proved their faith was justified, as he averaged nearly 15 points and 9 rebounds per game. It was during his rookie season that Karl earned the nickname that would define his career. Malone earned his nickname, the Mailman, during his rookie season, coined by broadcaster Peter Gammons for his consistency. He always delivers. The moniker stuck, reflecting not just his scoring consistency, but his incredible durability. This reliability became a source of tremendous pride for Malone, who viewed showing up and performing as a sacred duty.
And answering the bell every night. I did.
By his second season, the transformation was complete. Malone's scoring average jumped to over 20 points per game, and his partnership with point guard John Stockton began to show the chemistry that would eventually revolutionize NBA offense. The pick-and-roll combination of Stockton and Malone would become one of the most unstoppable plays in basketball history. As Karl Malone established himself as one of the NBA's rising stars, he appeared to be living the American dream. From the poverty of rural Louisiana to the bright lights of professional basketball, from academic struggles to rookie success, his story seemed like a perfect example of what was possible through hard work and determination. But beneath this inspiring narrative of triumph over adversity, darker currents were already beginning to flow, currents that would eventually overwhelm everything he had built and transform his inspiring rise into a cautionary tale of how power and privilege can corrupt even the most promising souls. The scandals and controversies. While Karl Malone was building his reputation as one of basketball's most reliable and hardworking players, a series of personal scandals were unfolding that would eventually define his legacy more than any basketball achievement ever could. The most damaging scandal in Karl Malone's life began in 1983, when he was a 20-year-old college student at Louisiana Tech. During the off-season, Malone returned to Summerfield and engaged in a sexual relationship with Gloria Bell, a 13-year-old neighbor. This wasn't a relationship between peers, it was statutory rape, a felony that carried up to 7 years in prison under Louisiana law. The fact that it occurred in his hometown with a child he had known since she was young made it even more horrific. Gloria Bell gave birth to Demetrius Bell on May 3, 1984, when she was just 14 years old. While Malone was pursuing his basketball dreams and preparing for NBA stardom, a teenage girl was raising his child in poverty, abandoned by the man whose crime had destroyed her childhood. The Bell family, aware of Malone's promising career and their own economic struggles, chose not to pursue criminal charges, a decision that would be criticized for decades as enabling Malone's escape from justice. The contemporary discussion of this scandal reveals the true horror of what Malone did and how he responded to it.
Karl Malone was 20 years old, impregnated a 13-year-old, got the fuck away from her, wanted nothing to do with the baby. The story's about, well, you know he was about to be a pro athlete, so take from that what you want.
When the Bell family filed a paternity suit in 1985, Malone's response was to deny everything. He initially denied being the father and ignored court summons until a judge ordered a DNA test in 1988, which confirmed paternity with 99.9% certainty. Even when faced with undeniable scientific evidence, Malone fought the modest child support payments, claiming that $125 per week was too much for him to pay, despite earning hundreds of thousands of dollars as an NBA player. The most heartbreaking aspect of this scandal was its impact on Demetrius Bell, who grew up without any contact from his father. In a 2008 ESPN interview, Demetrius described the emotional toll. "I treat it as if my mother went to the sperm bank. I don't know him." When Demetrius finally reached out to Malone at age 17, hoping for some connection with his father, Malone's response was crushingly cold.
Meets the kid 17 years later, 17 years old, says, "Listen, dog, it's too late for me to it's too late for me to be a dad to you. You got to go get it out the mud, get it on your own."
The callousness of this rejection was staggering. Here was a man earning millions of dollars telling his son, a victim of his crime, that he would have to make it on his own. The lack of empathy, remorse, or basic human decency revealed the true character beneath Malone's public persona.
Even though he was worth millions of dollars, the family just requested $125 a week, $500 a month. At that time, Karl Malone was worth $3 million. But still, he declined that financial request, saying that $125 a week is just too much for him to pay. This man was worth millions.
The Gloria Bell case wasn't Malone's only failure as a father. In 1981, at age 17, he had fathered twins Daryl and Cheryl Ford with Bonita Ford in Summerfield. Like with Demetrius, Malone provided minimal support and showed little interest in their lives. Cheryl Ford, who would go on to become a WNBA star, recalled in a 2006 interview meeting Malone briefly as a child, but feeling he wasn't there for us. This pattern of abandonment and neglect stood in stark contrast to Malone's later image as a devoted family man. After marrying Kay Kinsey, Miss Idaho USA 1988, in 1990, Malone became actively involved in raising their 4 children. He coached their youth sports, attended their events, and presented himself as a model father. The hypocrisy was stunning. He could be a loving, present father to some children while completely abandoning others. During his playing career, Malone cultivated an image that seemed to contradict his personal failures. He spoke often about the importance of hard work and earning what you get, principles that apparently didn't extend to taking responsibility for his own children.
You work, you earn it, you enjoy your rewards. And when one take from another, you're next. It's easy to take from you. But when you earn it, me personally, through my eyes, with conviction, I will protect it to the death because I earned it.
The irony of these words was lost on Malone. While he spoke about earning and protecting what was his, he had abandoned 3 children who deserved his support and protection. His selective application of these principles revealed the profound selfishness that characterized his approach to personal responsibility. The scandal that would ultimately end Malone's NBA career occurred during what should have been his crowning achievement. In 2003, at age 40, he signed with the Los Angeles Lakers for $1.5 million, joining Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and Gary Payton in pursuit of a championship. Instead of basketball glory, Malone's final season was defined by another inappropriate incident involving a young woman. On November 23, 2004, during a Lakers game, Malone made inappropriate advances toward Vanessa Bryant, Kobe's wife. The incident included sexually suggestive comments and the racially insensitive remark about hunting for little Mexican girls, referring to Vanessa's heritage. When Kobe confronted him about his behavior, Malone's response revealed the same character flaws that had defined his entire life.
You know what? I know what took place. I know what I feel like took place.
Even when caught red-handed, Malone couldn't bring himself to fully acknowledge his wrongdoing. His defensive response and unwillingness to take responsibility fractured the Lakers' championship hopes and led to his retirement in disgrace. The pattern was always the same: inappropriate behavior followed by denial, minimization, and deflection. What made these scandals even more disturbing was how Malone's fame and wealth insulated him from consequences. The lack of criminal prosecution for the Gloria Bell case, despite clear statutory rape, sparked debate about privilege and how Malone's local hero status protected him. The Bell family's economic disadvantage in rural contexts limited their options, while Malone's resources allowed him to pay for silence and legal protection. The NBA's response to these scandals was equally troubling. While the league has taken swift action against other players for far lesser offenses, Malone faced no sanctions, no investigations, and no accountability. He was allowed to continue playing, continue earning millions, and continue building his reputation while his victims suffered in silence. Modern observers have noted the stark double standards in how different misconduct cases have been handled.
But the NBA still called him up for the weekend. Said, "Yo, dog, come on. We need you right quick."
Need you right here. But that speaks to the difference between the NBA and NFL.
The contrast between Malone's treatment and the consequences faced by other athletes for lesser offenses highlighted systemic problems in how sports leagues handle serious misconduct. Malone's basketball talent and marketability seemed to provide him with immunity from accountability that other players didn't enjoy.
See, talent will take you places that character can't keep you. You could be worth millions of dollars and still be worthless, a worthless individual. You could be rich in the pockets, but poor in character.
Perhaps perhaps most disturbing was Malone's continued refusal to fully acknowledge the gravity of his actions. Even decades later, his responses to questions about his past remained evasive and self-serving. He framed his statutory rape of a 13-year-old as a youthful mistake, and his abandonment of 3 children as ancient history that shouldn't define him. The true measure of these scandals isn't just in the initial actions, but in the decades of denial, deflection, and refusal to make amends that followed. Malone had every opportunity to acknowledge his wrongs, seek forgiveness, and use his platform to help others. Instead, he chose self-preservation over accountability, image management over justice, and personal comfort over the pain of his victims. These weren't isolated incidents or momentary lapses in judgment. They were patterns that revealed fundamental character flaws that success and adulation only amplified. The man who had earned respect through his reliability on the basketball court had proven utterly unreliable in the most important areas of human character: responsibility, empathy, and moral courage. As Malone's playing career came to an end, these scandals remained largely hidden from mainstream view, buried by media complicity, legal settlements, and the pre-social media landscape that allowed powerful men to control their narratives. But times were changing, and the reckoning that Malone had avoided for decades was finally approaching. The reckoning and fallen legacy. After retiring from basketball in 2004, Karl Malone attempted to craft a new chapter for himself, one of business success, philanthropy, and family man redemption. For nearly 2 decades, this carefully constructed image largely held, helped by a sympathetic media and the absence of social media accountability. His 2010 induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame seemed to cement his legacy as one of the game's greatest players, with the focus remaining squarely on his basketball achievements, while his scandals remained footnotes.
I didn't do anything but try to play hard. I didn't have a motive. It wasn't about me. Never was about me. It's not about me tonight. It's about a lot of other people.
During his Hall of Fame speech, Malone presented himself as a humble team player who had simply worked hard and been blessed with success. The narrative was compelling, and for a time, it seemed to work. He built successful businesses, engaged in charity work, and maintained a relatively low profile that allowed his basketball achievements to overshadow his personal failures. Malone's post-retirement persona was carefully crafted around themes of humility and giving back. He spoke often about his gratitude for the opportunities basketball had provided him and his desire to help others.
I always tried to do it the right way. And I tell all my friends and family, try to live life the way you want to be remembered. Try to leave life better than you found it. And what good is success if you're not willing to share it?
These words rang hollow to those who knew about his abandoned children, but the general public remained largely unaware of the contradictions in his character. His ability to compartmentalize his public and private personas allowed him to maintain respect and admiration for years after his retirement.
Matter of fact, my flaws is probably 20 times worse than other people, but you're not going to outwork me.
Even when Malone acknowledged having flaws, he did so in a way that minimized their significance while emphasizing his work ethic. This pattern of deflection and self-aggrandizement would continue throughout his post-playing career, revealing that retirement had done nothing to develop his capacity for genuine self-reflection or accountability. But this grace period was not destined to last. The rise of social media and changing cultural attitudes toward accountability, particularly following the #MeToo movement, created an environment where past misconduct could no longer be buried or ignored. The tipping point came in 2020 with the release of ESPN's documentary The Last Dance, which prominently featured Malone's Utah Jazz as Michael Jordan's finals rivals. While the documentary focused on basketball, it inadvertently introduced Malone to a new generation of fans who began researching his background and discovering the scandals that had been largely forgotten. Social media users began reviving the Gloria Bell case, with hashtags like Karl Malone 13 inches trending globally. The new generation's response was swift and unforgiving. They saw not a basketball legend who had made mistakes, but a man who had committed serious crimes and escaped accountability. The 2023 NBA All-Star Game in Salt Lake City became a flashpoint for this modern reckoning. When Malone appeared as a judge for the slam dunk contest, fans at the Delta Center chanted Karl Malone 13, disrupting the event. The moment was shocking. In the very city where he had been most beloved, Malone was being publicly condemned by the fans who had once cheered him. Modern commentators began examining Malone's legacy with a critical eye that previous generations had failed to apply. The discussions were often harsh but necessary, cutting through decades of hero worship to examine the reality of what he had done.
Can't take nothing away from his game, but he was a dirtbag.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see his game without John
The
Stockton.
term is rapist.
That too.
That's the term.
Yeah.
That's not
A
dirtbag.
rapist. Well, and then a dirtbag after that. Shitty father, dirtbag.
This blunt assessment reflected a generational shift in how society viewed powerful men who had escaped accountability for serious misconduct. The younger generation, raised in an era of Me Too and social justice awareness, had no patience for the excuses and deflections that had protected Malone for decades.
Man, let me tell you something. Talent don't make you a good person. Talent don't make you have a good attitude. Talent don't make you have good intentions. Just because you talented, that don't mean nothing.
Current NBA players also began speaking out against Malone's continued presence at league events. Victor Wembanyama, the San Antonio Spurs star, reposted a critical video on Malone's 62nd birthday, captioning it, "Lock up his." The move was unprecedented, an active player publicly condemning a Hall of Fame legend, and it signaled how completely Malone's reputation had collapsed among younger fans and players.
Yeah, we all have flaws. Lots of them. Big ones.
When Malone did acknowledge his flaws in later interviews, his admissions felt calculated rather than genuine. The timing of these statements, coming only after public pressure mounted, suggested damage control rather than authentic remorse. His inability to specifically address his most serious failings while speaking vaguely about big flaws demonstrated his continued unwillingness to face the truth about his actions. The contrast between how Malone's case has been handled versus other athletes' misconduct became a focal point of criticism. While players like Kyrie Irving faced immediate suspension for social media posts, Malone has never faced any sanctions from the NBA despite committing statutory rape. This double standard highlighted broader issues about how sports leagues protect their stars and legends while claiming to stand for justice and accountability. Malone's own responses to this modern criticism revealed that he had learned nothing from his past. Instead of acknowledging wrongdoing and seeking to make amends, he remained defensive and dismissive. When confronted about his scandals, his typical response was to deflect and claim privacy rather than accept responsibility. The ongoing debates about Malone's statues became symbolic of the broader reckoning with his legacy. Louisiana Tech's 2023 unveiling of a statue honoring Malone's college career prompted backlash from alumni and Title IX advocates, with protesters arguing that honoring him sent a terrible message about the value of victims versus athletic achievement. In Utah, calls to remove Malone's statue outside the Delta Center intensified, with a petition signed by 15,000 fans arguing that statues celebrate values, Malone's actions betray ours. The debates revealed a community wrestling with how to handle the complicated legacy of someone who had brought them basketball glory while committing serious crimes.
That's gotta be super awkward to like be forced to stand next to somebody you know like has this stink on them, and then it's gonna come up because that's just the world that we live in now.
Malone is 6'11", built like a brick house, dog. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing about it.
He can smell like dog shit.
Ain't
You talking
nobody
about
gonna say
stink?
nothing about
He can smell like cow manure, and nobody say a word.
The most damning aspect of Malone's downfall wasn't just his original actions, but his decades-long refusal to truly acknowledge their severity or make meaningful amends. Demetrius Bell's success as an NFL player, despite his father's abandonment, became a powerful symbol of resilience, while Malone's continued evasiveness highlighted his moral cowardice. By 2025, Malone's transformation from beloved icon to pariah was complete. He lives quietly in Louisiana, managing businesses and hunting, avoiding NBA spotlight events beyond occasional jazz appearances. The man who once commanded standing ovations now faces protests and condemnation wherever he appears. The polls reflect this dramatic shift in public opinion. A 2025 Bleacher Report poll found that 62% of fans support removing him from the Hall of Fame, though no mechanism exists for such action. The sentiment among younger fans is even more stark. They see Malone not as a flawed hero, but as a criminal who escaped justice. Modern social media commentary captures the evolution of public opinion with brutal clarity. Posts routinely receive thousands of likes for statements like, "Great player, terrible person, that's Malone's legacy." The contrast with how he was discussed even a decade ago is remarkable. The protective media narrative has completely collapsed. The broader implications of Malone's fall extend beyond sports into questions about accountability, privilege, and how society handles the misconduct of its heroes. His case has become a teaching moment about the dangers of hero worship and the importance of holding powerful people accountable regardless of their talents or achievements. Perhaps most tragically, Malone's downfall represents a completely squandered opportunity for redemption. He had every advantage, wealth, platform, public goodwill to acknowledge his wrongs, make amends, and use his experience to help others. Instead, he chose denial, deflection, and self-preservation, ensuring that his legacy would be defined not by his basketball achievements, but by his moral failures. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.